well as 5 PhD theses, while 2 are nearing completion. Today, many of our former students are holding strategic positions in different parts of the globe. As a dedicated and effective teacher and researcher, Professor Jaiyeoba was adjudged and commended as the best lecturer by our department in the year 2004. Within this university, Professor Jaiyeoba has served in various capacities, including the following: as departmental student staff advisor from 1996 to 1998, postgraduate coordinator from 1998 to 2005, during which he received the Best Coordinator Award in the year 2002. He served as acting head of department from 2006 to 2008. I hope now that the GC professorship has made some time so that we become full head of department. We don't touch like the other people in faculty of education. Faculty chairperson of Ethics, Character and Orientation Committee and Common Room Committee, member Faculty Development Committee, member Finance Committee, and member Committee on Environmental Sanitation. She served as the Director of University of Ibadan Press from 2006 to 2011. She was member Committee on the Evaluation of Carrying Capacity and Cost Effectiveness of Postgraduate Programs between 2007 and 2008. He was chairperson organizing committee of the African University Day, hosted by the University of Ibadan on behalf of the Association of African Universities AAU in 2008. She has been a member of Senate of the University of Ibadan from 2006 to 2008 and from 2011 to date. Outside our university, Professor Jaiyeoba served as assistant examiner to the University of Lagos and Copa Lagos. Our alma mater, Obafemi University in Lagos. Olabisi University Agbewoye and Ekiti State University, Ekiti. He was appointed member Board of Agro Services Corporation by the Ogun State government between 1991 and 1992. He served as member of the task force for the establishment of All Souls High School in Ibadan, and later was member of the board of the school between 1999 and 2006. He was president of the Jaiyeoba University Women Association, Akua, between 2010 2005 during the tenure of our husband as the Vice Chancellor of the University. The recipient of Senate research grants for both individual and multidisciplinary research, Professor Jaiyeoba is a member of some learned societies and professional bodies, such as the National Association for Educational Administration and Planning. And the Nigerian Institute of Management, Chartered, NIL, just to mention a few. Professor Adebola Jaiyeoba is happily married to Professor K.C. Jaiyeoba, former Dean of Pharmacy and former Vice Chancellor at Jaiyeoba University of Ibadan, and the marriage is blessed with promising children and grandchildren. It's now my pleasure to call on Professor Jaiyeoba to deliver our inaugural lecture titled Management, the Key to Institutional Success.
Chancellor, Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration, Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, Deputy Vice Chancellor Research, Innovation and Strategic Partnerships, the Registrar, Librarian, Provost of the College of Medicine, Dean of the Faculty of Education, Dean of the Postgraduate School, Dean of other faculties and of students, Directors of institutes, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I glorify God Almighty for the grace to stand before this audience to present this year's inaugural lecture on behalf of the Faculty of Education. This is the 448th of the University of Ibadan inaugural lecture series and the 43rd from the Faculty of Education. It is the third inaugural lecture from the Department of Educational Management. The first inaugural lecture from Educational Management was delivered in 1999 by Professor Remy Longe, here seated. Her inaugural lecture was titled Investments in Nigerian Education, Relevance, Quality, and Governance at the eve of the third millennium. The second inaugural lecture was delivered 12 years later in 2011 by Professor J.B. Babalola. The title of his lecture was World Bank Support for Nigerian Higher Education, Pleasures, Pains, and Pathway Towards a Knowledge Economy. The first and the second inaugural lectures were delivered from the Educational Planning Unit. Today's lecture, titled Management, the Key to Institutional Success, is the first from Educational Administration Unit of our department. Mr. Sir, the choice of the title of my inaugural lecture was born out of inspiration and driven by my experience in teaching, research, and service since I joined the university service over 2 decades ago. The title is also in tune with the motto of the Department of Educational Management, which is efficiency and effectiveness. Therefore, it is my pleasure in this lecture to address management as the key in the hands of educational managers to successfully unlock the lofty goals of education at different levels. The hope and aspiration of development of any country rests mostly on the provision of quality education to its citizenry. The history of developed countries all over the world is incomplete without the vital role of education. For educational impact to be felt across other sectors, both qualitative and quantitative aspects of educational provision are expected to be given necessary attention. Thus, functional and qualitative education is viewed as a condition through which development of a nation is attained. In essence, the level at which the door of education is open to the entire citizenry may not matter much, but the quality of education offered to the recipient does. Nigeria as a country is not ignorant of the important role of education in the survival of an individual and the country as a whole. This is acknowledged in the National Policy on Education by adopting education par excellence to effect the development, as found in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 2004, Section 3. The National Policy on Education was first published in 1977, reprinted in 1981 and 1998, with the 4th edition in 2004, 5th edition in 2008, and the 6th edition in 2013. The different editions were as a result of attempts made to accommodate changes and innovations for the country to keep pace with the global world. The question is, to what extent has the country realized her laudable goals through education? A cursory look at the policy documents affirms that goals for different levels of education are fantastic and achievable. However, it appears that overall educational goals and specific goals spelled out for the different levels are elusive. In fact, the 6334 education policy, if properly implemented, ought to have facilitated the productive capacity of Nigeria's economy as against overdependency on foreign goods. If the policy works successfully for other countries, for example, United States of America, then improper implementation of the policy could be the problem of Nigeria rather than the policy itself. This implies that managers of the educational system have a significant role to play in the implementation and execution of educational policies and programs, respectively. There is no gainsaying the fact that education is the bedrock of national development, and that without education, there cannot be meaningful development. For a nation to develop, education needs to take its rightful position in the country, as no nation can rise above the quality of its education. In this lecture, I will define and explain terms, concepts, and terminologies relevant to the subject of the lecture. I will provide explanation on institutional success and highlight the importance of management to efficient and effective running of educational institutions. I will highlight some of my contributions to knowledge and make conclusions and recommendations. We need to define management. Management is defined as the process of achieving organizational goals by working with and through people and other organizational resources. The concept of management can be viewed from three perspectives, which are management as a group of people, management as a discipline, and management as a process. Management may mean a group of individuals saddled with the responsibility of managing an entity, organization, or institution. This indicates that management is at the helm of affairs in an organization. Management assembles and coordinates other resources towards goal achievement. Therefore, we have nomenclatures like university management, college management, school management, all referring to a team of individuals entrusted with authority to run the affairs of such institutions. For example, in the university system, management refers to the principal officers, which include the vice chancellor, the deputy vice chancellors, the registrar, bursar, and the university librarian. The successful achievement of expected goals, purpose for such entity, organization, or institution by the management depends on their experience and or professional training in the science of management. Management can also be perceived as a discipline that covers techniques, principles, theories, and rudiments of management. The interested people willing to practice management are taught the subject of management. This emphasizes the position of the management school of thought that says that managers are not born, but are trained on the use of scientific approach, relevant principles, theories, and techniques of administration to achieve the objectives of the organization. The third perspective of management is that of a process. It is concerned with the discharge of functions expected of individuals referred to as the management. Management as a social process is designed to ensure the cooperation, participation, intervention, and involvement of people in the effective achievement of a given objective. In other words, management as a process that borders on cooperation and participation of all stakeholders. Related management to education. Educational management can be defined as the application of management principles, procedures, practices to issues and problems of education. From this definition, therefore, management of education enterprise is necessary to prevent and deal with anticipated problems that could mark the successful achievement of educational goals at different levels of education. Looking at management embraces planning and administration. And administration refers to effective coordination of resources and people's efforts for the achievement of educational goals. But to have management be properly done, supervision is also important, which is an interaction between at least two persons for the improvement of an activity. Supervision is a formative, supportive, and developmental process designed to improve and promote growth and development. However, success is a term that is applicable to our everyday life. Hence, we talk about student success in examinations, success in organization, even success in events. Institutional success, therefore, relates to the achievement of goals outlined for such institutions. For instance, in the various levels of education in the country, specific goals and objectives are stated in the national policy on education, and these goals must be achieved to have institutional success. However, two factors determine institutional success, and these are efficiency and effectiveness. Efficiency deals with how fast a task can be accomplished, while effectiveness is the degree of success or the extent of accomplishment of goals. Effectiveness justifies the very continuance of an organization in its environment. However, for an organization to be effective, it must be efficient. The success of an educational organization is a function of effective administration, and the major goal of any educational institution is to produce quality graduates. The attainment of institutional success is based on leadership, management, and organization. Every educational institution is an open system, and an institutional or administrative success, therefore, is a product of a system. Open systems have certain characteristics which are also shared by institutions. These include input-output of energy, cycle of events, negentropy, differentiation, and equifinality. When we take into consideration the input-output of energy, educational institutions absorb input from the environment in form of humans, which are students, teachers, personnel, in form of material resources, in form of equipment, facilities, and constraints resources, in form of values, theories, policies, objectives, and expectations. These resources are processed in the school system, and the results are in the form of trained, qualified school leavers and graduates with the appropriate skills, knowledge, and values. Luther Gulick and Linda Owen in 1937 came up with an acronym that explains the elements of management which are regarded as management functions. The acronym POTSOP stands for planning, organizing, staffing, directing, coordinating, reporting, and budgeting. Mr. Vice Chancellor, let me expatiate on some of these elements. Planning is defined as studying the future and arranging the plan of preparations. It is the most basic of all the managerial functions, and it involves selecting missions and objectives and the actions to achieve them. Planning is meant to provide a rational approach to achieving pre-selected objectives. The function of planning in any endeavor is fundamental and divine in origin. For example, it is recorded in the scriptures that Jesus said to the multitude, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counted the cost, whether you have sufficient to finish it? For if you lay the foundation and are not able to finish it, everyone who sees it will ridicule you, saying, this person began to build and wasn't able to finish." As taken from Luke chapter 4, verses 28 to 30. Is it not the case of many abandoned projects or ventures in our society these days? In other words, failure to plan cannot bring success to any organization or institution. The adage is old enough which says, Failure to plan is planning to fail. Organizing is the process of determining who will perform the task needed to achieve the additional objectives, the process to be used, and the way the task will be managed and coordinated. Staffing, which is another management function, involves managing the organization structure through proper and effective selection, appraisal, and development of personnel to fill the positions in the organigram. For institutional success, the right man should be put on the right job. Directing, as an aspect of management, deals with influencing, guiding, supervising, and motivating subordinates for the achievement of organizational goals. It is a management function that concerns organizational methods of working efficiently for the realization of organizational goals. It has some other elements, which include supervision, motivation, leadership, communication, and controlling. Also, in institutional success, it is important to have certain principles of educational administration, which are normally general guides to possible actions in specific situations in educational institutions. These principles help to facilitate success in educational institutions. One, we have what we call the fundamental principles, sometimes referred to as universal principles of administration. These have some principles which include principle of responsibility, principle of delegation of authority, as well as principle of communication. Number two, we have the humanitarian principles, otherwise referred to as behavioral principles of administration. These focus on decision-making in organizations. The sub-principles for the humanitarian principles are principle of democracy, principle of human relations, as well as principle of justice. Three, the prudential principles. Prudence is the ability to anticipate, calculate, regulate, utilize, and control functions, services, and resources cautiously and expeditiously. It is a sensible and careful attitude that helps to avoid unnecessary risk. The sub-principles are principle of sound economy, principle of checks and balances, principle of loyalty, principle of responsibility and authority, principle of liberty and license, principle of employment of staff, principle of simplicity. Number four, the principles of change, also known as the tempo principle of administration. This helps leaders to determine and implement a change when necessary without upsetting the stability of education. The sub-principles are principle of adaptability, principle of flexibility, and principle of stability. Number five, the bureaucratic principles formulated by Max Weber, 1864 to 1920. Bureaucracy is a rational response to administrative strategy for the demands of complex organizations. It is characterized by order, systematization, rationality, uniformity, and consistency. The key elements of the bureaucratic principles include stipulated rules, division of labor, hierarchy of authority, employment and promotion of staff based on technical knowledge, impersonality in official matters, as well as emphasis on documentation and written documents. I have, during my academic career, engaged in a number of studies that focus on important variables that affect the performance of the Nigerian educational system at different levels. Permit me at this juncture to present some of my research findings, especially those related to this lecture. 1. Proper organization of resources. It was found out that there is need for proper organization to ensure that the minimum available resources in form of human, material, and fiscal are put into the educational system and are used to ensure maximum output for the institution to be successful. More so that such resources available to institutions are not unlimited. Jaiyeoba 2003, Jaiyeoba 2006, Jaiyeoba 2009. 2. Communication as a factor of managerial efficiency. In 2001, a study was carried out on communication as a factor of managerial efficiency in secondary schools in Ibadan North local government area. Communication, as we know, is regarded as the centerpiece of managerial activity, and it is a coordinating mechanism for the various organs or units of organization. The study therefore investigated the relationship between frequency of communication and managerial efficiency, effective communication and managerial efficiency, as well as leadership style and managerial efficiency. The high positive correlation obtained between frequency of communication and managerial efficiency shows the significant importance of communication to managerial efficiency. A leader who communicates frequently with the staff creates a situation whereby conflicts can be avoided within the organization, thus making the system to be efficient. Also, a positive correlation between effective communication and managerial efficiency shows that effective communication is essential for managerial efficiency, while the positive relationship between leadership style and managerial efficiency is an indication that an efficient management system is more realistic through a good leadership style. 3. Community involvement in the provision of facilities. Another variable studied during my course of research is the provision of facilities. School facilities are vital for efficient and effective delivery of education spelled out in the curriculum, and it is therefore imperative that their supply be adequate to achieve stated educational goals. A means of seeking alternative ways of funding as well as providing facilities for public schools led to the study carried out in 2004 on community involvement and academic performance of secondary school students, Jaiyeoba 2004. Significant relationships were found between parents-teachers activities and students' academic performance, as well as between the philanthropists and other associations' activities and students' academic performance. I'm happy to report that this is now the order of the day, whereby we have all students going back to the school to give back to their alma mater. 4. Another variable, supervision, was found to have great influence on the achievement of goals and objectives of educational institutions. However, for supervision to be meaningful, the school leader must exhibit organizational ability that will help in harnessing all the resources at the disposal of the school. Jaiyeoba and 2004. In another study, effective supervision of teaching learning activities was found to be essential for improved teachers' performance and thus achievement of educational objectives. Without good supervision, we cannot have the achievement of educational objectives. Jaiyeoba and 2007, Jaiyeoba 2011. Number 5, record keeping and administrative effectiveness. Record keeping enables proper understanding of the background, nature, and activities of institutions, and helps to assess the past and present and project into the future. Institutions' records also help in curbing matters of indiscipline among students as well as teachers. For an administrator to keep records, it's not just to keep records for keeping sake. It is important that such records are kept, accurate ones, complete and reliable records that will be easily accessed in order to be effective in the performance of the administrative roles. Jaiyeoba 2010. Number 6, implementation of educational policies. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I have cause to evaluate and appraise some government policies concerning the educational system in Nigeria, such as the 63346 system, Universal Basic Education UBE, and Education for All (EFA). The following are the outcome. 1. The two-tier policy introduced in 1982 into the secondary education system was to make education more relevant to the need of the nation, as it comprises 3 years junior secondary and 3 years senior secondary. However, there seemed to be inadequate preparation before the takeoff of the policy. It is suggested that sufficient time be allowed before takeoff to avoid failure of future policies. Jaiyeoba 1997. Universal basic education was also introduced into the educational system in 1999 to provide reading, writing, and numeracy skills to the citizenry. It is expected to take care of the 1-year pre-primary education, primary education, the first 3 years of secondary education, and basic functional literacy for out-of-school children, youths, and adults. It comprises a variety of formal and non-formal educational activities and programs to enable learners to acquire functional literacy. It was found out that the program has enhanced, to an extent, social, economic, and political development in the nation. A recommendation was made that monitoring of its implementation strategies should be done to ensure maximum results, so that the development expected to be achieved by the program will not be jeopardized. Jaiyeoba 2007. Number 7, higher to tertiary education reforms. A lot of reforms have been introduced into the tertiary education in Nigeria. In view of this, some administrative practices in tertiary institutions were praised with a view to bringing improvement to tertiary institutions and positioning them in a way that will help the country to reduce poverty among the youths, reduce unemployment, and enhance technological development in the country. Among the recommendations made to reduce poverty and unemployment are: 1. Having regular market survey on skills required by the labor market and making the curriculum flexible enough to accommodate changes that will prevent the mismatch existing between educational outputs and requirements of the labor market. 2. Subsidizing tuition by government, not only in federal institutions, but also in private institutions to enable more access to tertiary education. 3. Establishing strong feedback devices with employers and parents on quality of graduates. Jaiyeoba Ayeni and Atada 2007, Jaiyeoba and Atada 2007, Jaiyeoba and Atada 2008, Jaiyeoba Ayeni and Atada 2009. Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, the success of an educational institution, just like success of any other organization, can rightly be assessed by the level of achievement of goals related to the set objectives. Educational goals can be classified as national goals, institution-related goals, or student-related goals. For instance, the success of the institution may be expressed through assessment of the students' short-term objectives relative to their long-term goals. To this end, institutions are expected to provide the right curriculum, academic support, and services that will help their students to achieve both their short-term objectives as well as their long-term goals. For example, the goal of secondary school students after completion is to gain admission to university, while for the undergraduates, Their goal is to get employment upon graduation from the university. It is when these students achieve their goals that the institutions can see themselves through the glass of success and thereby record institutional success. However, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, due to lack of effective management, many public institutions in Nigeria cannot boast of student success, talk less of institutional success. For they have recorded failure in the achievement of almost all the objectives stated in the various educational policies in force. Many students turned out yearly cannot boast of either securing admission to higher institutions or securing employment even 5 years after graduation. Consequently, many children are seen hawking and several graduates roaming the streets daily in search of unavailable jobs. These conditions cannot fetch institutional success for all the institutions affected, as the long-term goals of their students have not been met. The key to unlock success for the institutions, as suggested in the title of this lecture, is management. It is therefore my submission that if management training is given to every institutional head and their assistants, it is like handing to them the key to the success of that institution. In addition to improper management of institutions, however, the institutions have also been greatly affected by a myriad of educational problems that have bedeviled our educational system in the last few decades. I will just mention some of these problems. Poor funding, lack of adequate infrastructure, lack of teaching materials, indiscipline, poor governance, politicization of education, as well as politicization of appointment of teachers, corruption, unstable curriculum, unaffordable cost of education, poor parenting, negative social media influence, poor supervision and monitoring, and lack of capacity training programs for heads of institutions. Severe deprivation of funding together with the effects of other factors mentioned have left most of our institutions, especially public institutions, in a serious condition that may be likened to a state of kwashiorkor. It is therefore my view that to put education back to its proper position, as obtained before and after independence, concerned stakeholders must sit down and make plans for the turnaround of our educational system before it is too late to revive. Mr. Vice, from the foregoing, I have been able to present the importance of management to the survival of our institution, whether at the primary, secondary, or tertiary level, and have presented the problems that have plagued our educational system in Nigeria. For institutions to record success, certain principles, procedures, and practices must be followed, all which management provides. Failure to do so results in anything but institutional success. Unfortunately, many institutions lack management strategies which have led to the failures, resulting in serious consequences for the institution, their products, and the nation at large. From the area of efficacy in management, it is a proof that management is the key that will unlock the door of institutional success. To end this lecture, Mr. Vice Chancellor, sir, I would like to make the following recommendations. 1. Commitment to implementation of educational policy at all levels. Government should ensure adequate preparation prior to the commencement of policies to be introduced into educational system. 2. Appointment of school administrators based on merit. Since school administrators serve as pilots in steering the institutions towards success, any wrong selection or appointment could lead to bone displacement. 3. Regular management training. Regular training should be provided for administrators and management teams in order to enhance the management capability. In this way, I would like to commend the management of the University of Ibadan for organizing yearly capacity building program for departmental heads, directors of institutes and centers, and deans of faculties. However, sir, I would like to add that experts in management be included as resource persons. Number 4, functionary supervisory units or agencies. The federal and state inspectorate units, as well as other supervisory agencies, have to be effective in the performance of their statutory responsibilities. Number 5, participation of stakeholders. Participation or involvement of stakeholders in institutional programs should be encouraged. Number 6, motivation of institution staff. To ensure institutional success, the staff of institutions need to be remunerated and motivated in a way that will enhance performance. And number 7, introduction of basic management course. In view of the importance of management, not only to organization, but also to our everyday living, it is recommended that the University of Ibadan should introduce a basic course in management for all undergraduate students as a general studies course. As this will go a long way to equip graduates from this university with necessary background to achieve success in their lives and endeavors. In marriage, you need management. In whatever management is made. It is a great pleasure and delight that I acknowledge all those who have made immense and valuable contributions to my life and supported me all the way through my academic endeavor. I give all the glory to God Almighty, my Creator, my rock, my redeemer, and my strength, for guiding me through the journey of life and making this day a reality. To him be praise, glory, honor, and adoration forever and ever. I sincerely acknowledge my parents, Mr. Adebola and Mrs. Adebola, both of blessed memory, for giving me life, sound education, and sound moral upbringing. Being the first of the 7 children, they ensured that I attended one of the best schools around, St. Anne's School, Ibadan. I wish to appreciate all my siblings and their spouses for their love and support. I appreciate all my uncles and aunties, cousins, all the fathers and mothers' sides at home and in the diaspora. I thank God for my parents-in-law, Mr. Samuel Jaiyeoba and Mrs. Abigail Atinuke Jaiyeoba, both of blessed memory, and the entire Jaiyeoba family, both nuclear and extended, as well as the Iyele family, for receiving me into the family as their daughter upon my marriage 36 years ago. I appreciate all my teachers at St. Anne's School. All the teachers who taught us were devoted to their calling, and they ensured that they gave us training that made us grow to become total human. I cannot forget my classmates at St. Anne's School and other members of St. Anne's School Old Students Association, SASOBE. They are appreciated for the support I receive from them all the time. I am deeply grateful to my lecturers at the undergraduate level at the University of Ife, now Inaugural University in Ife, as well as those who taught me at the MA and PhD levels at the University of Ibadan. The likes of late Dr. S. D. Akako, Professors J. Anuako, Remy S. Logan, disgraced institution. Every night, I professor, AI, like the vice chancellor. Special acknowledgement must be given to the dean of the Faculty of Education, Professor Jaiyeoba, for the opportunity given me to deliver this inaugural lecture on behalf of the faculty. I thank all the former deans of the faculty, all professors and academic staff in the Faculty of Education and the Institute of Education are appreciated. The departmental staff, starting from the acting head, Dr. Jaiyeoba, deserves special appreciation. I sincerely appreciate members of the inaugural committees of all the faculty and educational management departments. I appreciate the faculty officer and other non-teaching staff in the Faculty of Education, as well as the secretary and other non-teaching staff of the Department of Educational Management. You have all worked relentlessly for this occasion. I appreciate you all. I thank with love and joy my doctoral, MPhil, and MS students, both past and present, who through their hard work and commitment to scholarship are giving me fulfillment of mentorship. All my undergraduate students, both past and present, are equally appreciated for the joy they give me anywhere I come across them. I like to thank all members of the learning societies and professional bodies to which I belong. I like to express gratitude to the Federal Government of Nigeria for award of Federal Government Teachers Bursary through my undergraduate study, and the University of Ibadan for funding to the research for both individual and multidisciplinary research. The West African Health Organization for sponsorship to give a plenary lecture in Accra, Ghana in 2006. The Most Reverend Jaiyeoba and Mrs. Sue Akifenwa, the Lord Bishop of Ibadan Diocese, and the entire clergy family, the President and members of the Women's Organization of the Diocese, and all our spiritual fathers are appreciated for your love and support to our family. To members of Women Christian League, also Church Bodija, and IB District so close, and Academic Street Residents Association, I say thank you. My husband's colleagues, especially members of the Grammar School Old Students Association, as well as some Speaker Society of Nigeria, both at home and in diaspora, are acknowledged as they continue to share us with love and care. I am grateful to the staff of Faculty of Pharmacy of this university for the love and support to us and help to nurture our son to become a pharmacist. Now to my base. I appreciate and cherish our wonderful, God-fearing children. Dr. and Dr. Mrs. Fishola, pharmacist and Mrs. Olade Jaiyeoba, Dr. and Mrs. Olade Jaiyeoba, and engineer Jaiyeoba, as well as our grandchildren, Oluwatoke, Temitope, Oluwaseun, Oluwatoni, and Oluwabusola, who are sources of joy unto us. I thank you all for your understanding and love during the period of my academic career. The last but not the least is my husband.
Thank
is the key to that success.
the National Conference Center, second page of this course. You are most welcome.